Hello, and welcome to the ProjectWise Administrator Advanced Accreditation course on Advanced Workflows. In this group of lessons, we are learning how to prepare a data source to support an advanced workflow. In this lesson, we will configure document attributes that can track approvals during the review process. We continue to learn how to update an environment to support the advanced workflow. In the previous lessons, we got an overview of how document attributes can help track approvals and reviewed key concepts related to automated attributes. In this lesson, we will use what we've learned so far to configure document attributes to track approvals. In this lesson, we will be working with three foundational concepts related to ProjectWise environments: lookup tables in the context of user information, stored procedures, and triggers. For more information on these topics, please view the previous video. Now that we have covered the foundational basics, we can configure the existing My Company environment to meet the project team's requirements. To do so, we have 6 major tasks. 1. Create 3 new attributes to trigger submitted by, approved by, and revised rejected attributes. 2. Add default value to the rev attribute. 3. Configure value lists for the peer review attributes. 4. Configure update values for dates and review attributes. 5. Set access to read-only for key QA/QC attributes. And 6. Adjust attribute definitions. This lesson's exercise will walk us through each task. To begin, we will create 3 trigger attributes. In ProjectWise Administrator, we create the trig approved, trig rejected, and trig submitted attributes as integers. Next, we will update the default value for the revision version attribute. In ProjectWise Administrator, open the properties for the rev attribute. On the Value tab, change the default value type to fixed and enter in the correct value. Click OK to save the change and dismiss the dialog. Our change will set the default rev value for new documents to P01.01, the first revision number for any document. Next, we will create pick lists for the peer review attributes. As illustrated before, we will simply use a select statement to list all user initials from the PW user lookup table. In ProjectWise Administrator, open the properties for the drawn by attribute. On the Value tab, in the Value List section, enable Limit to List and change the type to Select. Enter in the correct select statement. Click OK to save the change and dismiss the dialog. Repeat the process for the Check By, Design Status, and Design By attributes. Note that we are using a fixed list for the Design Status on the Value tab in the Value List section. The 7 date attributes will be updated using the date system variable when triggered by a value change of the related attributes. Let's start with the approved date attribute. In ProjectWise Administrator, open the properties for the approved date attribute. On the Value tab in the Update Value List section, change the type to System Variable. In the System Variable field, type $date$. Change the Update field when method to Specific Attributes are updated. Click the Browse button to open the Triggering Fields dialog. Add the appropriate attribute to the list of triggering attributes. In this case, the attribute is named Approved By. Click OK to dismiss the Triggering Fields dialog, then click OK to save the change and dismiss the Properties dialog. Repeat the process for the check date, design status date, design date, drawn date, rejected date, and submitted date attributes with the triggering values denoted in the table. The submitted by, approved by, and revised rejected by attributes will be updated using the ISO 19650 action names stored procedure when triggered by a value change of the related attributes. Let's start by configuring the approved by attribute. In ProjectWise Administrator, open the properties for the approved by attribute. On the Value tab, in the Update Value List section, change the type to Select. Click the Browse button to open the Value Type Select dialog. Enter the Select statement to execute the ISO 19650 action names stored procedure. Be sure to identify the appropriate trigger attribute for parameter number 2. When calling out an attribute value from the same document, remember to use the $edit# syntax. Click OK to dismiss the Value Type Select dialog. Change the Update field when method to specify attributes are updated. Click the Browse button to open the Triggering Fields dialog. Add the appropriate attribute to the list of triggering attributes. The attribute here should match the same attribute you used for parameter number 2 when executing the stored procedure. In this case, the attribute is named trig_approved. Click OK to dismiss the Triggering Fields dialog. Then click OK to save the change and dismiss the Properties dialog. Repeat the process for the rejected by and submitted by attributes with the SQL select statements and triggering values denoted in this table. Several attributes need to be set to read-only so that the user cannot make edits. The values of these attributes will only be updated using the update conditions you just created or directly by the workflow rules engine. Let's start by configuring the approved by attribute. In ProjectWise Administrator, open the properties for the approved by attribute. On the General tab, in the Attribute Value section, change the access type to read-only. Click OK to save the change and dismiss the Properties dialog. Repeat the process for the attributes denoted in the table. Finally, we will make some cosmetic changes that the project team has recommended. Each title line can only have 25 characters or less to fit on the title block in the sheet file. The revise reject reason needs to allow multiple lines. The design status value needs to be 12 points ago UI black. Let's start by configuring the Title 1 attribute. In ProjectWise Administrator, open the properties for the Title 1 attribute. On the Editing tab, set the maximum input length to 25. Click OK to save the change and dismiss the Properties dialog. Repeat the process for the Title 2 and Title 3 attributes. Now let's configure the rejected comment to be multi-line. In ProjectWise Administrator, open the properties for the rejected comment attribute. On the Editing tab, set the control type to multi-line edit field. Click OK to save the change and dismiss the Properties dialog. Lastly, let's configure the design status attribute. In ProjectWise Administrator, open the properties for the design status attribute. On the Editing tab, change the control font to Seago UI Black and set the control font size to 12. Click OK to save the change and dismiss the Properties dialog. Congratulations! You configure document attributes so the project team can track documents in the design review process. In the next lesson, we will summarize the work we have completed to prep for the design review advanced workflow.
If you found this video helpful, please give it a like. If you want to see more such series, consider subscribing to our channel. Thank you, and see you next time.